Hello folks, hope you're having a very good rest of your week, or at least you're halfway through the week right now, so congratulations to you. I'm still recovering from having a really sore throat, so I'm not going to be too loud in this video. I'm going to try and make sure that I get all of the information to you about the towel that I can without actually going mental and shouting down the microphone, because I have a lot of, I would say, cool things to say about the towel. It is the first non-Imperial faction that we've done on this side of the 40k lore rants. And whilst this may be not really a ranty video, because I haven't got that much to say about bad things that they do, it's still one I hope that you'll find very, very interesting as we dive in to our first Xenos race, the Tau. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. If you really like what I do, then the little bell notification icon is right next to that. Click that if you ever want to hear from me, or you won't, because YouTube won't share any of my stuff, or anybody's stuff, for that matter, to be honest with you, unless you click that notification bell icon. So the Tau. One of the most weirdly controversial forces in the 41st millennium. The Tau have a strange reputation that I don't think they've ever fully deserved. I remember their reveal in a White Dwarf years ago. I was sitting in my grandparents' place on one of their reading chairs, and I'd just gotten this brand new White Dwarf and had one of the classic Tau colouring Crisis battle suits on the front of it. I'm sure you know which one I mean. And I thought they looked really remarkable in a way that they offset the usual Imperial fare of grimdark 40k. But in that offsetting, the Tau really find both their voice and the source of most of their problems with people. Let's find out what makes them tick, and what, if anything, might change. But to be honest with you, there's one part of the Tau lore that I always thought really exemplified who they are and what they're about more than anything. And that is the fact that when they first came across the Imperium and they started seeing a lot of propaganda and things like that, they actually didn't think that Titans were real, because they didn't think that people would waste resources in such of a bombastic way just to prove a point. They didn't know who they were dealing with, clearly, but at the end of the day, it shows why people don't like the Tau. For me, most of it is tied up in the fact that they hold the spotlight up to the more wacky things in 40k and say, that doesn't make sense, why do you do that? But let's do the good first, shall we, before we go anywhere else? So, something the 40k universe was always missing was actual clean-looking sci-fi tech. What I mean by that is that we have all of this grim darkness, oil over machinery, whacking stuff until it works sort of a thing, but we've never actually had clean, gorgeous technology that looks like it could be straight out of a pulp sci-fi novel. The Tau fill that mould, and people were asking about this. I remember back in the day when I was in school, people even at Games Workshop were asking for this for ages. They were saying, can we not have something like this? Something like, Buck Rogers, or something like, Star Wars, or so something more sleek, just for us to really get our teeth into. Because 40k was a very grim, dark setting, and it was one that, had a very truckers in space sort of vibe. And the Tau, I think, did a remarkable job of showing us these energy pulse weapons, these railguns and things like that, at a really cool pace that actually fit into the 41st millennium. But it's also one of the reasons why I think they're loathed, right? They're loathed because they're different. There's nothing quite like them in Warhammer 40,000. That's one of the main reasons why I think people tend to, shall I say, be very tentative about liking them. The Tau Empire, as in the Empire of the Tau, must always be expanding in waves. This attachment to the natural flowing of water and the elements makes them an incredibly elegant faction in terms of lore building. I put them just behind the ogres for how neat everything within their lore fits together. And if you know anything about my history with ogres and how much I love their lore and how elegant and beautiful it is, you know how much of a compliment that is for me to give. The Tau are, quite frankly, the most elegant faction in 40k when it comes to every part of their lore fits into every other part of their lore almost effortlessly, right? They really do go above and beyond. That they're certainly more elegant than people like, say, the Imperium, who have a million different facets of a million different shades and a million different colours. That may be true, and that's quite cool. That's why people like to create their own Imperial forces. But at the end of the day, everything about the Tau fits into their aesthetic, and everything about their aesthetic fits into who the Tau are. The Tau take a lot of inspiration from Middle Eastern to Far Eastern teachings and philosophies and religion, and the way that you should go about your life and finding inner peace and working with nature instead of against it. A lot of Tau cities, quite frankly, they wind around trees instead of cutting them down. They look like very large mechanical mushrooms, essentially. Even all of their technology relies on the natural forces of atomic power and the power of the energy, to get the weapons out there. All of their armor is essentially forward facing and all segmented. They are a very elegant faction in that all of their points fit in together very nicely. If you were going to live anywhere in 40k, live in the Tau Empire. Beautiful cities protected by vast shields, railguns, on worlds that look like they are straight out of some sci-fi utopia. Would you be one of the highest of the high in such a place as a human? No, of course not. But you'd still live better than 99.99% of the Imperium's current citizenry. And I think that's kind of another reason why they're so hated. Is because if you look at the world of the Tau and how they act and how they live, the fact that you could literally be the lowest base citizen of the Tau and still live better than most people in the Imperium says a lot. It says a lot about what we're fighting for here, if we're fighting for the Imperium. And it gets under people's skin, because they don't really see the nuance of where we're going from here. They hit on similar themes to the Canary in Dragon Age. If you've ever played Dragon Age and the Canary, the Tau hit on very similar themes, although they are far less brutal as a race. Yes, in the Tau Empire, you do have very few freedoms beyond your nature as a cog in the machine. I don't get the communist stuff, by the way. I sort of vaguely get what you mean, but unless you're going to say that the Imperium are far right, Reich lovers, which I don't think they are. No, they're far from it, right? Well, the Tau are communists in the same way that the Imperium are basically on the far right, okay? In a way that I don't think they are. They're blatantly not. Do they have trappings from communism? Sure they do. I think communism is one of it's like 10% of the 100% that makes up the Tau species as a culture. I think, the other 40% is mixed with Buddhist ideals, another 40% is mixed in with Shinto, all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of it is more based on naturalistic societies that have an absolutist edge or a very collectivist edge than you do with any other sort of race or species in 40k. So yes, I don't get the memes about communism. I don't. I understand why they are there, because most of the people purporting memes are smooth-brained morons who only see one aspect of a race and go, that's what they are, and, go figure, right? But I've never got it at all. But yes, in the Tau Empire, you have very few freedoms beyond your nature as a cog in the machine. But you are safe, you are cared for, you are fed, and you have the opportunity of advancements in your assigned role. So within the Tau Empire, you are given a role to fulfill that is based on your strengths and your weaknesses, right? And you can't move away from that role. But what you can do is advance up the ladder in that role as far as your skills can take you. That's really cool. That means you're not distracted by anything else. That's something that Canary and Dragon Age I really love about them, is that they say, yes, you're free to join our empire, but you'll be joining it, if you're a warrior, then you are a warrior now, and that's it, that's all you do. That's what you do in our empire. You're part of you're a Sten, or you're whatever, yeah? You're part of this empire as a warrior. You can never be a baker. You can never be a priest. No, you can't do any of those things. You don't even need to think about any of those things. All you need to think about is being a warrior. But, in doing that, the only thing that's stopping you from reaching the very pinnacle of our civilization as a warrior is you. We will provide you with your training, with your food, with the roof over your head. You will have everything that you need to succeed. All you need to bring to the table is you. What worth do you have in that role? Show us. And you can rise as far as you can. That is the Tau. That is the Tau. So yes, you don't have the freedom if you're part of the Fire Caste or you're part of a human part of the Tau military. You don't have the freedom to go and just become a trader, or to go and sign on with a rogue trader or sign on with an expeditionary fleet. You don't have the rights to do that. But what you do have the rights to do is advance as far as you can up the ladder until you can eventually command forces of your own, or even go even higher, right? So, what is the vague concept of freedom compared to that? You tell me. What is the vague concept of freedom compared to safety and security in a world like the 41st millennium? It's a beautiful duality that really makes the law of the Tau tick. Right? That is the duality of it that I've just said there, right? Are you free? No. No. But you're safe. And you're happy. There's a duality there, isn't there? Because all humans want to be free. But the Tau are alien. Freedom doesn't mean the same thing to them as it does to us. They are the only truly real nation and people in the 40k setting. What I mean by that is, they're realistic. Not that they're real as intangible, you can touch them. I mean they're realistic. They can't solve all of their problems with more firepower. They need to spend the lives of their people sparingly, and they understand that you win more friends with honey than with bile. What do I mean by that? I think what I mean by that is that with the Imperium, it's so bombastic, it's so over the top. As I just said before, the Tau didn't even understand what these Titan things were. They can't be real, because no race would be stupid enough to build something like that. It's so impractical and so stupid. You could do all of that from orbit. What they don't understand is that the Imperium is a very petty religious place. And so they want to show you the power of their church by, if you don't turn up to church, don't worry, the church will come to you. Right? That is the imperial way of thinking, and the Tau just don't understand that. It's a very human way of thinking, but it's still not a practical way of thinking. And that's why I think the Tau are incredibly... They act like... Did you ever see that character in The Simpsons? It was from an episode called Homer's Best Friend, where Homer meets a guy who doesn't understand why Homer has a perfect life, because he does. Like, he's got a nice job, he doesn't have to work very hard in, he's got a beautiful family, he's got all this, all that, and all that stuff going on. And this guy works so hard and can't seem to reach the heights that Homer can for no reason. Well, what that guy is in The Simpsons, he is a normal person from our world dropped into The Simpsons. And he quickly goes mad and ends up accidentally killing himself via electrocution because he's not wearing the right rubber gloves, right? Whereas in 40k, the Tau are him. The Tau are normal, good people put into the 40k setting, and they're looking at it going, what the actual fuck is going on with this? This is crazy, right? And that's what I like about them. It's one of the main strengths that they've got, is that they are very, very, very easy to understand and get to know. Is that they are, because they're weirdly more human than the Imperium is. How crazy is that? The fact that the Tau do not really register in the warp, have no psychers really, and so cannot travel through them immaterium, actively limits their power in another very elegant way. This is what I meant when I say the Tau's lore fits in so nicely together. It fits in such a lovely, elegant way. If the Tau ever did have the technology to sail the stars as the other races do, like humanity, do I think we would see I think we would see a huge snowball effect as world after world does not just submit to the Tau, but petitions to join the Tau Empire. You will have Imperial worlds begging to join the Tau Empire. When they see what kind of cities and what kind of infrastructure and agricultural reform and all these other things that the Tau actually have that the Imperium doesn't give them, because in fact the Imperium are actually quite scared of them advancing to any sort of level beyond being, emperor-loving artards, right? By depriving the Tau of their means to head out about the galaxy in this way, we ensure that whilst the Tau remain an option in the setting to play as they are not as they are not a plot hole, they still remain a viable, faction on the tabletop, right? The Tau aren't expanding in all directions all of the time because they can't do that. They have a really limited means of travel. That's how you limit the power of the Tau. Because let's be honest, if you are working yourself to death for the Imperium, why would you not want to join the Tau Empire if they turned up? Please take all of your 40k biases and idiotic memes out of it, right? As a normal human being, you're working 20 hours a day as part of the Imperium in a sweatshop, right? Making ammunition. Then the Tau turn up and say, wow, this sucks. Here's a picture of our worlds. Would you guys like to eat hamburgers? Do you know what hamburgers are? Oh, right. Well, they were these things back on your home world that we figured out how to make. And basically what you do is you get a cow patty. You don't know what a cow is? Oh, well, it's this really tasty animal that you can actually make a steak from. Well, you don't know what a steak is? And on and on and on it goes, right? Everybody would join the Tau Empire. I'm sorry, they would. And that's why the memes of the big titty Tau girlfriend on the poster, right? That's where that comes from. That's where that comes from, is that, you know, there's no reason you wouldn't join them. Just isn't. And that fits in so elegantly with their limitations and that they can't go as far as the Imperium can. And that's the reason why I actually really like them as a Xenos race. Shoot me. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. But that's the good. Let's go to the bad, shall we, before I go anywhere else. So, we are going to bomb your planet because it's for the greater good. So it's all fine. Yeah, that's something that a Tau Ethereal would say. There is a serious risk of the Tau being seen as hypocrites here. I mean, at least with the Imperium, you know what their modes and methods are, right? They're coming at you. The Imperium are coming for you. They're coming for you for everything that you've got. And if you're not human, you're dead. If you are a human and you're not going around the same lines that they are and thinking, you're dead. That's what the Imperium are. They are black and white, and you know what you're dealing with. With the Tau, they fall into the same trap as most nations with this absolutist outlook. Their way is the only way, and if you do not agree to join the greater good, then you are simply working to end the universe, and that cannot be tolerated, right? They are far more, shall we say, patient than any other race in 40k for people not wanting to join their way of thinking. Do you ever wonder why in your favourite RTS strategy games, the races that rely on sneakiness are not being all-out combat-oriented, and the players who play them are generally disliked? It's not just a 40k phenomenon, it goes on across different games and factions and things. I was even playing the Dune game a few weeks ago, the board game, and we had somebody who was playing quite a sneaky faction, and they weren't very well liked at the table. Like, people started turning against them straight away because they didn't trust them, right? The Tau suffer from the same thing. When everybody else is fighting wars on a galactic scale, the fact that the Tau can just rock up to a world, flash some hentai, and take it over willingly over time kind of makes all of the sacrifices elsewhere meaningless. Do you know what I mean? If they can do it without fighting, what are we fighting for? And no one likes feeling that way. In a way, the Tau are corrupted by the nature of 40k as a setting itself. The Tau need to expand at all costs, but I do get the sense that in reality, the Tau are this way because 40k needs them to keep wanting to expand, rather than them actually needing to expand. The overly Japanese and East Asian motif of the Tau also means that a lot of folks seem to think they are Gundams and weebs, and that's pretty much it. They play into the meme generators and lolcows of 40k quite perfectly in a way that I honestly find kind of irritating, you know. But the main drawback of the Tau, and the one thing that stopped me from getting a Tau army in the past, has been that the memeage that is thrown at the Tau all of the time. I know I would end up snapping and just being like, will you shut the fuck up about Gundams and hentai and weebs, right? Stop. I'm done, right? Please stop. The hatred for Tau is something that I've also never really understood, and whilst I get why there are some who get annoyed at their antics, I honestly don't understand where the sheer loathing comes from, aside from one thing. The tabletop and tournaments. Because negative things in 40k are almost never linked to the lore. They're linked to the tabletop, tournaments, and some people who play those things that are very neckbeardy and very lol cow, meme cow, wanting to spread around people, right? Yeah, we're at that part of the video. On the tabletop, the Tau have been regarded as one of the strongest factions now for a long time. In fact, in 7th edition, we saw the Tau gunline lists become some of the most broken armies in 40k since Grey Knights and other armies in things like 3rd edition. In an edition, in 7th edition, that was almost all about shooting, the Tau were indeed the kings. This is because they very rarely get into hand-to-hand combat, which is fine in itself, but if you give an army no close combat options beyond the Kroot, is it any wonder each list is just so into firepower that it's memeable? You know? That's the main thing about the Tau that I never got. The main pickup of the hatred of Tau doesn't come from their lore, right? It comes from people looking into the lore and looking for things to hate. Why do they look for things to hate? Because of 7th edition and editions like it that made the Tau some of the most broken pieces of shit in the game. And it's not because the Tau are overly good, it's because the game itself was geared towards shooting and not close combat. Again, it's no wonder, right? And even then, Games Workshop take away most of the options the Tau had for close combat to make them even more of a memeable faction that stands behind a gun line and is very cowardly and doesn't like to go out there shooting things and fighting things. It just winds me up. There was no need to do it, and instead Games Workshop, as they always do, they leaned into the meme because they're morons and they like to play to the lowest common denominator, and they ruin the Tau for most people who might have gotten into Tau, like myself. So, how would I change them? To be honest with you, in a few words, as you know, I like their lore. In a few words, I wouldn't. I'd change the rules, yes, but I think we're already getting there. The Tau are now coming down to like a decent standard of power level, you know what I mean? Like, we're already getting there, so I think we're already getting to that part where this is going to go away eventually. The horrible thing with 40k is that these things, I'm a Grey Knight player, hatred for your army never goes away. I was not around in 3rd edition, I didn't play Grey Knights in 3rd edition, I didn't field any broken-ass Demon Hunters armies. I never did any of that. I literally started Grey Knights at the end of 7th edition, and I kept on going, right? I am not your enemy, but I still get meme lords shouting at me about how Grey Knights are overpowered today. Now. Literally. It happened a few weeks ago. Literally a few weeks ago I had this argument at a friendly local game store, where I was being lambasted for playing Grey Knights because they're so overpowered. Dude, they don't even break the top 5. They don't even break the top 5. You know? Because the hatred never goes away, because Games Workshop likes to cater to the lowest common denominator, the smooth brain arseholes who can't take a hint. That's why the Tau, I don't know if I'll ever collect them, because I can't stand going to somewhere and being lambasted simply because I decided to collect this form of plastic toy soldiers to the plastic toy soldiers that you like. Grow up, you little twat. I've fucking had enough of them, honestly. Get them in the sea. How would I change them? Well, in a few words, I wouldn't, because we're talking about lore and not rules, as we always do here. At least, not the Tau Empire. I think they serve a fantastic counterpoint to a lot of the constant war that goes on in 40k, and their worlds are similarly a glimpse into the future mankind was heading to under the rule of the Emperor before he was put on the Golden Throne. Instead, I would change the Farsight enclaves. Now, Commander Farsight is a cool character, and I wouldn't want to change too much about how they go about their business. I would instead change 2 things about the Tau, and also about Farsight as well. One, they are more feudal in nature. Not totally feudal. I'm not pulling them into line with the Imperium, but the Tau as a people are more feudal in nature, with fire castes being allotted to each lord, who in turn serves the ethereals, right? Okay. Number 2. I would lean into the samurai and ronin characteristics if we are going to go full Japan, right? Where if we're going to have Gundams and we've got lots of really idiot, smooth brain meme lords talking, saying we're just Gundams. Let's lean into it and really annoy them then. When a lord dies in combat, instead of committing self-deletion, like obviously some samurai did, the Tau warriors submit themselves for a mind wipe and are retrained before being given to another lord. Okay? Well, number 3, Farsight sees how the Firecast are essentially treated as disposable bodies by everybody else within Tau society in this way. He sees that the Tau Empire, as the Tau Empire grows, it is becoming slower and slower to react to certain threats, and eventually secedes from the Tau Empire entirely. Okay? Instead of being a nice boy chasing the greater good, though, Farsight has gone full 40k. He obsessively trains his warriors in the arts of close combat, bulks up their armour, and even starts experimenting with close combat stims and drugs to build muscle, reflexes, and increase the survivability of his Tau warriors and anybody else who wants to join him. In Farsight's enclave, if you're human, orc, whatever, if you come and join him, you're one of his guys. That's it. There's no like, oh, the tower on the top. No, there's none of that, right? You all take the combat stims, you all go work out, you all get given a sword, and say, forwards towards death, forwards to the enemy, right? When a large Chaos fleet smashes through several Tau worlds and comes for the Enclave next, Farsight claps their cheeks so hard, he inadvertently saves the Tau Empire from a massive Chaos invasion that this force was the vanguard of. In short, the Chaos forces decided the Tau were too much trouble than they are worth. This is because Farsight is showing the true potential of the Tau if they abandoned their huge reliance on their technology by moulding the tactics of the enemy with their own. So what Commander Farsight's doing here, he's learned from the Imperium, and he's integrating their tactics into his own technology. He's having the best of both worlds. Both on and off the tabletop, we have those options. So now the Tau have some serious, powerful close combat options, right? So why isn't Farsight expanding and taking over the rest of the galaxy? Because now he has access to warp travel, because he uses human navigators and human warp drives and things like that, right? So, just as Farsight takes the good from 40k, however, he also takes the bad. Anybody not wishing to conform to his rather strict version of the greater good is cold completely. Any world he comes across receives a single warning to bend the knee and join the greater good before he brings the guns out. Farsight does not trust the Watercast, and as such his diplomats are simply his elite soldiers, sent to demand surrender of a world for the greater good. This is the reason his empire is growing at around 1/10 the rate of the actual Tau Empire, but it is still growing, and he is facing next to no rebellions or insidious sects like the Tau do. So that's what I would do. Keep the Tau as they are, but make sure that they have beefier options from those who are supposed to act as their outsiders. If you are going to have a breakaway from the Tau to give people options, then have them form a real breakaway rather than just dudes with a slightly different take on the greater good. I'd also say that more commanders are breaking away from the Tau in time, meaning, as a hobbyist, you can create your own break-off group of the Tau if need be. What do you guys think? Have I not gone in on the Tau enough in this video? I kind of think that I have. I kind of think that I've gone in on them quite a bit. There are quite a lot of things that the reason why a lot of the stuff really annoys me is because I actually want to play Tau. I would love to actually convert myself some Tau and really samurai them up. But you just know, I couldn't walk into a single group or anywhere without people bad-mouthing it and telling me that I was some sort of weeb, or some sort of idiot for wanting to go with Tau. Whilst I'm okay dealing with those people, and I'll just walk away from those people, I don't want to walk away from 7 out of 10 of my opponents because they won't shut up about my army, right? I already have that now with Grey Knights, and my thing with Grey Knights happened 15, 16 years ago, right? That's when the Grey Knights were truly really powerful in the setting, not in the setting, in the game, and I'm still dealing with it now. it's a real shame that the hobby and the hobbyists themselves ruin what could be a really fantastic race, because the Tau are simply the most elegant race lore-wise in Warhammer 40,000. And I'd love to know, if you don't agree with me, what race do you think in Warhammer 40,000 is the most elegant in terms of all parts of their lore fitting together very nicely? Love you all long time. Hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. Love you all very, 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 very much. I'm going to go boil my head and get my voice back. See ya. Have a good one.